I have a book here that my mother gave me when I was a little kid. It's called The Illustrated History of the World. It describes 3.5 million years of human history in illustrations. And it's interesting. On the first page, page 1, there's two Neanderthals, and they're trying to build a fire. They're knocking two sticks together to try and build this fire. And then you page all the way to the end of the book, to the last page, and there's humans in a spaceship, like landing on the moon, right? And we got cars that are driving themselves, and cell phones, and computers and robots, and you think, wow, we really have made a lot of progress as humans in 3.5 million years. But then you go back and you look at page 2 of the book, and those same two cavemen that were just trying to make the fire on page 1, I guess they got angry at each other while trying to figure out how to make the fire, because now they're hitting each other over the head with the very sticks they were trying to build the fire with. And you're thinking to yourself, well, let's see how we've done with conflict resolution after 3.5 million years ago. So you go to the very end of the book, okay? And there's a picture of some riot in some city, and they're in the parking lot of Home Depot, and people are hitting each other over the heads with 2x4s. And you think, well, I guess we haven't made as much progress as I thought. And I thought about this when you read this gospel today, and where Jesus at the very end says, you're so smart. You can figure out the weather. You can figure out all these natural events. You can predict the future, right? But you can't figure out the present moment. And if he was here with us today, I think he'd be saying, you know, humans, you're really good at this, aren't you? You can put a man on the moon. You can put satellites in orbit. You can make cars that drive themselves. You can do all this crazy technological advancement, but you still haven't figured out yourself. You still haven't figured out why you want to sometimes hit somebody over the head with the stick, right? You haven't taken the time to figure out the present moment. And that's how I interpret when Jesus says the present moment, to figure out how we tick, how we work, right? To look inside, all right? And that's not easy for us to do, is it? It's tough to be very introspective of ourselves and literally pop the hood and look on the inside and say, how do I think? How do I operate? How do I tick? And I'm going to beat up on the guys a little bit, but like if you go up to most guys out there and say, hey, I'd like to have a very deep, introspective look at my emotional feelings right now, would you join me for a couple of hours? Most guys are going to be like, I'm out. I'm leaving. I don't do this touchy-feely crap. I'm out. I'm going hunting. I'm going fishing. Or what I love, a lot of guys will say, I'm going to go do something productive. Isn't that the truth? And it's true. Guys go out, and we do. We as humans, and ladies, you do this too sometimes. You go and do something productive, don't you? And we are productive as humans. We went and we were so productive, we went out and figured out how to create a rocket that could get us to another planet in the solar system. We went out and we figured out how to make a smartphone. We went out and figured out how to make a robot and a car that drives itself. But we still would not take the time to figure out how we work. What's going on in here, the present moment. And so what I thought today we could do is literally like a car, pop the hood, and we would look on the inside and say, how do we work? This complex tangle of emotions and feelings in the brain, how does this all come together and work in our life? Maybe it'll help us to figure out the present moment, okay? Now, again, I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a psychiatrist, okay? I'm not really an expert in anything. So this is all just my opinion, okay? So of course, if you don't like it, you can always just throw this in the wastebasket on the way out, okay? But just like a car, okay, a car has an engine, has transmission, coolant, steering, right? We too on the inside have 3 different things that help us make decisions and live our life, in my opinion, okay? 1 is mental, 2 is emotional, and 3 is God, the spiritual aspect. And all 3 of those things, just like a car, have to work together to allow you to live your life, okay? And they correspond to something, right? The mental corresponds to your brain. The emotional corresponds to your heart, your soul. And of course, the spiritual, of course, is God. Makes pretty sense. So let's look at each of these in isolation. We'll start with the God portion, the spiritual element of ourselves. I alluded to this in my message in the outdoor service at the beginning of August, and I said that God communicates to us with feelings. Okay, and I really like this concept, and I called them what our instincts. I said sometimes in life you feel very instinctual about something. You can't explain why you feel that way about it, but you just know it feels right, and oftentimes that's instinctual. And I believe, and I'm slowly becoming more enamored of this idea that God does is very much our instinctual urgings in life. Okay, because all of our instincts, they're not learned behaviors. You have these at birth. A baby is born with instincts. Okay, nobody knows where they come from because they come from God. And all of your instincts drive you towards the creation and preservation of life. The creation and preservation of life. That's what your instinctual inclinations want you to do in life. Create and or preserve life. And that makes sense, doesn't it? That God would want you to create and preserve life. He also created life. And he wants you to preserve it. So when you go out there and build a family and have children and help raise children as part of a social group, all of which is very instinctual for you, God's wanting you to do that. When you go out and find food and shelter for children or for life or for others, that's instinctual. You want to do that, right? God's pushing you to do that, okay? Now, some of you might say, well, is love instinctual? Is my emotions instinctual? No. That's the territory of the heart, okay? That's the second part, right? The emotions that come from our heart, from our soul. I'm not talking about the heart that pumps blood in your body. I'm talking about your spirit. Your soul. Also talked about this in the last outdoor message too. Now our heart, this is where all the emotions and feelings in our life come from, both the good and the bad. So you have joy and happiness, compassion and charity, and you also have hate and anger and frustration, and you also have depression and sadness. All of those emotions come out of our hearts, okay? And some of you might be able to remember all the way back to January of this year, and I gave a message about children of God, and I said that God gives us emotions and feelings. Those are the gifts we get as children of God. And we get to choose how we feel about things, okay? And we choose. We choose whether to be angry about something or frustrated or sad or happy or joyful. Okay, these emotions are gifts from God, but let's face it, in 2025, we're not exactly living through the age of the heart anymore. If you don't want to get a job, a good way to go into your interview is to say, I am a very emotional person. I cry at a drop of a hat, right? I don't ever think with my brain. I only ever think with my heart. Trust me, they won't hire you, okay? Not a good way to get hired, okay? Because we look down on the heart right now. We say, oh, they're emotional, right? But this is truly a gift from God, how we feel about things. It's important. Okay? Because guess what this thing can do for us? It can harness the most powerful energy in the universe, and that is love. That's why God gave you this thing, so that you could love. When he created humans, and I know I've talked about this before, he partially limited his power. He could have made us little robots where we just do exactly what God wants us to do. Right? Imagine, world peace would have been achieved. But he said, you know what? I'm going to limit my power. I'm going to give these humans the ability to choose. They're going to have a heart. And they're going to be able to choose how they feel about things. I'm going to limit my power. God can't make you love. He can't do it. He said, you have the free will and the free choice. And you can literally go an entire lifetime and never love. You can literally choose, even though there's the most powerful deity in the universe, which is God, he can't make you do it. He can lead you, right? Like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. He can lead you to situations which will allow you to choose to love, but he can't make you do it. Only you have that power. That's incredible. It's really incredible when you think about it. That's how powerful this thing, the heart, is. And you can also choose in this heart to make really bad choices, choices of evil. You can choose to hate. You can choose to commit violence based on that hate and that frustration and that anger. All comes from this thing, the heart, okay? But remember, it can't be love unless it's given of your own free will. It's not true love. It has to be your choice and only your choice. All right, so we've talked about God's instincts, creation and preservation of life. Talked about the heart, which is a choice we make based on our emotions and our feelings, allows us to choose to love. And the final part that makes us tick, it's this thing, the brain, right? The big brain. And let me tell you, we're not living in the age of the heart right now, but we certainly live in the age of the brain. If you want to get a job, go into the job interview and say, I'm a very sensible, logical, rational human being. I only ever use my brain to think through any decision, right? I always just use this thing. They'll hire you in an instant. Those are the key words people want to hear these days. Rational, logical, composed. I don't give in to my emotions. Everything's based on this thing. Jesus calls that out in this gospel. We overuse this thing, the brain. Now, I don't want to take away from the brain. It's a pretty powerful thing, right? The reason we have air conditioning and plumbing and dishwashers and cars is because you had a brain. It's a pattern recognition device. It goes through life and it looks for patterns, just like Jesus says, right? You go outside and you see a bunch of clouds and you say, man, they're black clouds. I bet you it's going to rain, right? And it rains, and the brain says, okay, there's a pattern. That's what your brain is doing. It picks up on patterns. The limitation of the brain is this. When it encounters something that doesn't fit a pattern, it gets very confused. And guess what? Emotions, your heart, they don't fit a pattern. And so you'll see this oftentimes. Again, we'll beat up on the guys a little bit, but somebody has an emotional outburst, somebody gets angry, somebody's very sad, right? And what do guys say? She or he's crazy, right? That's what you say, right? Because your brain's saying, I don't understand that. I don't understand those emotions. And it says, they're crazy. They're not using their heads. They're not thinking, right? They're not logical. They're irrational. That's how our brain looks at this thing, the heart, because it doesn't fit a pattern. Remember that. The brain's only ever looking for patterns. It can't understand the heart, and sometimes can't understand instinct because it never follows a pattern. But now the brain is still important. All three parts of these are important, okay? The brain, the heart, instincts, they all have to work together. You can't have one without the other, and we tend to live in a society where we emphasize one over the other. Can't be that way. You got to get them all to work together. This is why people often feel conflicted. I'm sure all of you have at some point in your life felt conflicted in your heart, right? Because I feel like I'm tugged in different directions. Some days I think this way about a problem, and the next morning I think about it this way, and I can't figure out which way to go. And the reason is because your brain's telling you one thing, your heart's telling you another thing, a way to feel about it, and your instincts, God's telling you to go in this direction. And you feel literally tugged in all different directions. And the trick is to understand the present moment is to sit down and say, how does my brain think about this? How does my heart feel about this? And what is God telling me through my instincts? And then figure out which one of those needs to lead in this situation. That's the real trick. One or two of them or all three need to lead and drive you in a certain direction to choose the right path. So we'll do a couple little, to kind of wrap this thing up, a few practical examples here. And we'll kind of like look at it that way. Say, hey, how does the heart look at this? How does the brain look at this? How does the instincts look at this? Some of you might think these are overly simplified. It's just some examples I came up with, but I'm sure you can kind of apply this to your everyday life. So we'll start with example one. You're driving down a busy highway, say 83 or maybe Route 30, okay? And somebody really cuts you off, okay? And they slam on their brakes and you almost have a collision with the guardrail, and this unfriendly motorist, they gesture at you with less than 5 fingers. And you get really angry, okay? You're like, that moron almost caused me the crash. So your heart flares up in anger and frustration. And so your heart says, you know what? Catch up to that guy and we'll tailgate him. Okay, so you hit the accelerator and you take off, and your speedometer is going 75, 85, 95, okay? Like, I'm going to get him. And of course, maybe you guys don't have road rage, but you can apply this to other situations, angry situations in your life. Okay, that's your heart talking. I'm angry. I'm frustrated at this. I want to get back at him. Okay, your heart just made a choice. What would your instinct say? What would God tell you in this situation? Remember, creation and preservation of life is instinct. That's God. He'd tell you, don't get yourself killed over this. And don't get somebody else killed. Why don't you slow down? Now, what would your brain say? Well, remember, your brain looks for patterns. So your brain's going to be very smart and logical with this. It's going to say, hey, up ahead there's a mile marker. And next to that mile marker, there's always a state trooper. And if you go flying past him at 95 miles per hour, he's going to pull out, and he's going to give you at least a ticket. Most likely, he's going to revoke your license for reckless endangerment. He's going to arrest you. Why would we want that to happen? How about you slow down? and let this go. So in this situation, notice how even though our heart feels angry and frustrated, and it made a choice to choose that anger, our brain and God, our instincts, help to calm us down. And we slow down and say, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I'm sure that example has probably happened to you in your own life. All right, number 2. I call this the prodigal son example because it's very much, it mirrors the parable of the prodigal son. In life, you're in an organization or you're in your family and you work really hard. You work very hard. You're very diligent. You're very honest. You get the job done and you don't ask for praise or reward or compliments, right? And you just keep your head down and you get all the stuff done, okay? Nobody ever praises you. Nobody ever gives you reward. You do the right thing. And then suddenly Nick the new guy shows up who doesn't do it the right way in your organization, at your job, or in your family, and everybody's just overjoyed. Oh my goodness, they're here to save us, right? Good job, and everybody's clapping and cheering, right? And they're like, don't you want to come and welcome them back? And your brain, when it looks at this, is saying, what in the world, right? This doesn't fit the pattern. The pattern is I work really hard in life, and I get the reward. I get the promotion. I get the extra money, right? I get the compliment. This person shows up, and they didn't do any of the work. They didn't do anything, right? They didn't do it the right way, and they're getting the reward and the promotion, right? And you're saying, your brain's like, no, I'm not going to go up and welcome them back at all. Your brain will not allow you to understand the parable of the prodigal son. It can't. It doesn't fit any pattern. What do your instincts say in this situation? God will always draw you back to the group. Your instincts will always draw you back to a group because you're a herd animal, you're a social creature, you want to be a part of the group. And the reason he's dragging you back to the group is so that you can make a choice with what? The heart. And that's the parable of the prodigal son. It won't fit a pattern, guys. It won't make any sense in your brain. It's a choice whether you're going to love or not. God can't make you love. He'll instinctually draw you to come back to that group and be a part of it, and then you get to make the choice. Am I going to freely love or am I not? And that's your choice. But this is a situation in life that I'm sure many of you have encountered where you have to choose with your heart. All right? Third example, I call this cleaning out the attic, which I know many of us have done at some point in our life, okay? Where you got to go and life's all about accumulating things. So at some point, you got to go up to the attic or down to the garage or into the basement and clean stuff out. You accumulated all this stuff, and you say, you know what, now I'm going to go up there and I'm going to get rid of some stuff, okay? I'm going to donate, give it away. All right, so you march up to the attic and you say, all right, we're going to start with Grandma Evelyn's sweater collection. All right, now Grandma Evelyn, she spent a lifetime knitting well over 1,000 sweaters. All right, and you're like, I got them, but I can't hold on to all these. So I'm going to pick a few, just a few, that are emotionally significant, and the rest I'm going to donate to Goodwill. That's your goal. So you open the cardboard box and you smell the mothballs. All right, and you're like, here we go. You pull out the first one, and you're like, oh, your heart just says, I remember the story about this one. I remember when Grandma Evelyn said she knit this back in 1945, waiting for Grandpa to come home from the war. This is a keeper, and you put it on the keep pile. And then you're like, okay, second one. You pull out the second one, and your heart goes, oh, I remember when Brother Ralph, he had broken his leg, and she knit this while he was recuperating. You're like, we're going to put this here. Maybe I'll take it over my brother's house. He might want it, even though the reason you ended up with the sweaters in the first place is because your brother didn't want them, right? And by the end of this exercise, after going through like 1,100 sweaters, your keep pile is up to here, and your pile of giveaways is this, 0. You won't do it. Your heart won't give up on any of it. It holds on to all of it because they're all emotionally significant. They all remind you of Grandma Evelyn. They all have a story. What does your brain say? Well, your brain's a natural hoarder. You're like a chipmunk, a squirrel. You hold on to all the nuts, right? Your brain's like, listen, grandma sweaters, they're not in fashion right now, but fashion is cyclical. In 10 years, they might be in vogue, and I'll be the coolest thing wearing my grandma sweater, okay? And they might even be worth something. So we should hold on to these, right? Or it's like, they could come in handy, right? They're really warm, okay? We could use those. The kids could use them. I'm sure the kids would want these, the grandkids, all right? So I can tell you right now, and I do this too, it's impossible to get rid of anything when you use your heart and your brain. It'll never let you do it, okay? What does God say? What do your instincts say? Well, good luck finding any type of scripture out there that tells you to invest in material items. God will tell you every time, you can't take it with you. Don't invest in material items. Unless it's necessary for the creation and preservation of life right now, like a house, shelter, something we're cooking with, let it go. Let it go. And you know that's the truth. I was helping my boss. He's cleaning out his house right now. He's 83, okay? And he's literally going through the basement doing this thing. And every item we look at, there's a picture or something, it has an emotionally significant to him. And he's talking about the story. And his brain is always like, well, this might be worth something, right? This old-timey, phone might actually be worth something these days, right? And then the only way to get him to get rid of it is he has to literally walk up to the trash can and say, I can't take it with me. I can't take it with me. He actually has to say those words. And the reason he's saying that is that's your instincts. That's God telling you. You'll never get rid of anything in your home if you take your brain and your heart with you. Make sure you take God the next time you go up in the attic, if you really want to get rid of some stuff, okay? Final example, I was in Afghanistan, and on the patrol base, a group of churches sent a large pallet of international aid to us, okay? And a group of churches in the Midwest, they got all their funds together, and they bought 1 ton of Spam. Yes, Spam, the cheap pork products you buy at the grocery store. They sent it. Can you imagine what 1 ton worth of Spam looks like, okay? So they brought it on a helicopter and they landed it. And the churches were so excited. They're like, please distribute this to the locals, okay? Now, these churches, I want to give them credit. They really put out a lot of money to buy 1 ton worth of Spam, okay? And their hearts were in the right place. So their emotions were right? I want to love. Their instincts were right too, right? Creation and preservation of life. I want to help other people out. Here's the thing they left out. The brain. The brain. They didn't think it through. We're in a Muslim country. Muslims can't eat pork. And if I hand them a can of Spam, they find it offensive. All right? So guess who ended up eating all this Spam? Yeah, the 120 Marines on the patrol base. I never want to eat Spam ever again, let me tell you, after 1 ton worth of Spam. Okay? Now, why I bring this example up is because you want to be like, oh, I'll just be a heart-filled person, an instinctual person. No, guys, you got to be smart too. We got to use our brains, okay? Somebody, and again, I don't fault these churches that gathered up all this Spam. Somebody should have said, hey guys, let's look on Wikipedia and see if in Afghanistan they can actually eat Spam, right? Maybe we should send them that's more appropriate, like rice, okay, or chicken, right? But nobody did that. Nobody thought that one through. And that's where it's a key element here. All these things have to work together. You can't just say, well, I'm leading with my heart, or I'm leading with instincts, or just with my brain. You got to get them all working together, okay? And think how in many ways it really sort of mirrors the Trinity. God in 3 parts, all equal in one, right? The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Same thing for you. One person, the brain, the heart, and instincts, all one, all equal in one, okay? I said this at the last outdoor message, that in our lives, it's very natural that as our technology and science advances, our brain races to keep up. It wants to keep up with it, okay? So the brain is like out there. And our brain will always outrace our heart, and our heart is here. And our souls lag behind. And no wonder we can't figure out the present moment, because we're all over the place. Our brain's out here, our heart is here, our instincts are back here. And so if you really want to understand the present moment in your life and figure out how you tick, how you work, you got to get them all together, all working together. And maybe in that moment, you'll understand who you are. Amen.